My cousin manages a pharmacy in Oslo, and last month an American walked up to the counter mid-transaction with another customer. No greeting, just launched straight into, "Where's the ibuprofen?" While my cousin was literally handing prescription medication to an elderly woman. The woman paused, looked at him, then continued her conversation as if he'd never spoken. He tried again, louder this time. Still nothing. By the third attempt, he was visibly frustrated, saying, "Hello? Can anyone help me here?" The elderly woman finally finished, gathered her things with deliberate slowness, wished my cousin a good day, and left. Only then did my cousin turn to him and say, very calmly, "God dag. How may I help you?" The guy complained that he'd been ignored for 5 minutes. My cousin explained that interrupting someone's transaction without a greeting is the fastest way to be treated like furniture. He insisted this was discrimination, that in America people would have multitasked. She just handed him the ibuprofen and said, "This is Norway. I work at a tourist information desk in Reykjavik." An American woman approached and immediately started with, "I need directions to the Blue Lagoon." Not "hello," not "excuse me," just straight into demands. I was helping another visitor who was asking about hiking trails. She got louder. "Excuse me, I'm talking to you." The other visitor and I exchanged a glance and continued our conversation. When I finished, I turned to her and said, "Gan dagen," with a smile. She huffed and said she'd been standing there forever. I explained that in Iceland, you greet people first and wait your turn. She informed me that Americans don't waste time with formalities because efficiency matters. I pointed to the Blue Lagoon brochure rack and returned to my work. I'm a museum guard in Vienna. An American couple walked past the Bitleys Sprechen sign discussing their dinner plans at full volume. Other visitors kept turning around, giving them looks. They didn't notice. At the Klimt exhibition, they stood directly in front of a painting for 10 minutes blocking everyone else, debating whether the gold was real. When an elderly Austrian man politely said, "Entschuldigung," and gestured to see past them, the husband said, "Just a sec, buddy," without moving. The man waited 30 seconds, then walked away shaking his head. The couple later complained to staff that people were rude and wouldn't help them find the restroom. My colleague asked if they'd said "Entschuldigung" first. They said they'd asked 3 people. He clarified, "Did you greet them in German first?" They looked confused. "Why would we? They speak English here." He gave them directions and walked away. These aren't isolated incidents. There's a pattern that keeps playing out across Europe, Asia, and beyond, and Americans keep asking the same question. Why won't anyone help us? Here's what's actually happening. I'm a hotel concierge in Munich. An American man strode up to my desk while I was checking in a German family, planted both hands on the counter, and said, "I need a restaurant reservation, something authentic." Didn't acknowledge me, didn't acknowledge the family, just started listing requirements. The family went silent. The father looked at me with raised eyebrows. I continued processing their room keys, handed them over, wished them einen schönen Aufenthalt, and waited until they'd walked away before turning to the American. He immediately complained that I'd ignored him. I explained that in Germany, you wait for the current interaction to finish and you greet people first. He said in Chicago, concierges handle multiple requests simultaneously because time is money. I asked if he'd prefer I book his reservation while giving incorrect room keys to other guests. He said that's not what he meant. I said, "Guten Tag. How may I assist you?" He spent another minute explaining why German efficiency was overrated, then grudgingly made his request. I found him a reservation at a very touristy restaurant. He seemed satisfied. My sister runs a government office in Singapore where foreigners apply for work permit. An American woman burst into the waiting room, walked straight past the queue number machine, and approached the counter. My sister was mid-sentence with another applicant explaining visa requirements. The woman cut in. Quick question, do I need an appointment? My sister held up one finger without breaking eye contact with her current client. The American said louder, it's just a quick question. My sister finished her explanation, the applicant thanked her and left, and only then did my sister address the woman. The woman complained she'd been ignored while asking a simple question. My sister explained that Singapore has queue systems for a reason and that interrupting is considered rude. The woman insisted that in America, customer service means addressing quick questions immediately. My sister pointed to the queue machine, said, please take a number, and called the next person. The woman later emailed a complaint saying Singaporean staff were robot-like and unfriendly. My sister's supervisor replied that following established systems is part of their service culture. I work reception at a Ryokan in Kyoto. An American man walked in at 3 p.m., checked his phone, and asked, is my room ready? No bow, no greeting, just the question. I bowed and said, Irashames, to welcome him. He repeated, my room. Is it ready? I explained that check-in begins at 4 p.m. as stated in his confirmation. He said he'd been traveling for 14 hours and just needed to drop his bags. I apologized and offered to store his luggage. He sighed heavily and said, at Hilton's they let me in early. I smiled and bowed again, reiterating our policy. He informed me that in America, customer service means flexibility, not rigid rules. I agreed that each culture has different hospitality approaches and again offered luggage storage. He asked if there was a manager. There was not. He took a photo of my name tag, said he'd be leaving a review, dropped his bags, and left. He returned at 4 p.m., I checked him in with the same bow and greeting, and he didn't make eye contact once. I manage a ticket office for the Colosseum in Rome. An American couple approached my window while I was selling tickets to an Italian family. The husband leaned in and said, 2 tickets. Not scusa, not permesso, just stated his need. The Italian father paused mid-sentence, glanced at them, then continued asking me about skip-the-line options. The American wife said, we just need 2 tickets, this'll take 2 seconds. The Italian family looked uncomfortable but said nothing. I finished their transaction, wished them buona giornata, and they thanked me and left. The American husband immediately said, finally, 2 adults. I replied buongiorno and smiled. He repeated 2 adults slowly and loudly. I waited. His wife elbowed him and whispered something. He grudgingly said buongiorno. 2 tickets please. I processed their tickets cheerfully. They complained that Italians were inefficient and that Americans were taught to be direct to save time. I explained that in Italy, manners come before efficiency. He said that's exactly why America runs better. I handed them their ticket. My uncle owns a café in Amsterdam. An American woman sat at a table, picked up the menu, and after 30 seconds started waving it in the air saying, hello? Can we order? This was 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. We weren't busy. But in the Netherlands, servers don't hover. You signal when you're ready. She waved harder. Service here is so slow. My uncle walked over after finishing with another table, asked, Klaar omt bestellen? She said, finally, yes. I'll have the pancakes, coffee with ice. He said they don't serve iced coffee. She asked why not. He said it's not a Dutch thing. She insisted every cafe in Seattle has iced coffee. He offered her cold milk with espresso. She made a face and ordered regular coffee. When he brought it without asking if she needed cream or sugar, she flagged him down. He brought cream and sugar. She later told other tourists that Dutch service was cold and staff wouldn't check on you. My uncle said that's the point. You're left to enjoy your meal without interruption. I'm a waiter at a tapas restaurant in Barcelona. An American couple sat down at 6:30 p.m., which is early for Spain, and immediately started looking around for staff. The restaurant was nearly empty. I was setting tables for the dinner rush that happens around 9 p.m. The man whistled at me. Actually whistled. I looked up, made brief eye contact, and continued folding napkins. He whistled again. His wife said something, and he switched to waving his hand. I finished the table I was working on, washed my hands, and walked over. Buenas tardes, I said. He replied, we've been waiting 10 minutes. I apologized and took their order. They ordered 5 dishes at once. I explained that tapas come out as they're ready, not all together. He said they were hungry and wanted everything at once. I said I'd inform the kitchen. The dishes arrived over 15 minutes. Each time, the wife looked annoyed. When I brought the check, she asked if it was normal to bring food out randomly. I explained that's how tapas work. She said in America, you bring all appetizers together. I suggested they might prefer a different style of restaurant next time. They left a 5% tip. I work at a street food stall in Bangkok. An American man approached during lunch rush, pointed at 3 different dishes, and said, "What's this, what's this, what's that?" We had a line of 8 people behind him. I started to answer, and he cut me off asking about another dish. One of the Thai customers behind him cleared his throat. The American turned and said, "I'll just be a minute." Then back to me, "Which one's not spicy? Are these gluten-free? What's in the sauce?" I explained briefly, but he wanted detailed descriptions. The Thai customers started checking their phones, shifting weight, making their frustration quiet but visible. He finally ordered, then changed his mind, then changed it again. When he moved aside to wait, he told the next customer, "Service here is slow but the food's authentic." The customer, a local, ignored him entirely. When I handed the American his food, he said, "That took forever." I smiled and said, "Kop kun ka." He asked if I spoke English. I said yes. He asked why I didn't explain the menu better. I glanced at the line that had now doubled. He followed my gaze and said, "Oh," but didn't apologize. "My brother works at a brasserie in Paris." An American woman sat down, opened her menu for 30 seconds, then started looking around for service. In France, servers give you time to decide. You signal when you're ready by closing your menu or making eye contact. She didn't know this. After 2 minutes, she called out, "Excuse me?" My brother was taking another table's order. She said louder, "Excuse me, waiter?" He finished writing down the order, walked to the kitchen, submitted it, then came to her table. She said, "I've been waiting forever." He said, "Bonjour, madam." She sighed and said, "Bonjour. Can I order?" He took her order. When he didn't ask if she wanted anything else or how her meal was, she complained to another server that French waiters were rude and inattentive. That server explained that in France, interrupting your meal is considered disrespectful. She said in America, good service means checking in frequently. The server said, "You are not in America." She later wrote a review saying Parisians were hostile to tourists. My brother keeps a binder of such reviews as entertainment. I sell train tickets at Gare de Lyon in Paris. An American approached the counter and said, "Ticket to Versailles." "No bonjour, no s'il vous plaît." I looked at him and waited. He repeated, "Versailles. 1 ticket." I continued waiting. He said, "Do you speak English?" I replied in French, "Bonjour, monsieur." He stared at me. Another person in line behind him, a French woman, said quietly, "Il faut dire bonjour d'abord." The American turned and asked her what she said. She repeated in English, "You must say hello first." He looked back at me and said bonjour. "Ticket to Versailles, please." I processed his ticket cheerfully. He muttered that this was the most backward system he'd ever seen. I handed him his ticket and said, "Bonne journée." He walked away shaking his head. The French woman stepped up, we exchanged proper greetings, and completed her transaction in 30 seconds. He later posted online that Parisian train staff were unhelpful and ignored customers who didn't speak French. Multiple people commented that he'd violated basic etiquette. He argued that customer service shouldn't require learning a foreign language. My dad drives a taxi in Istanbul. An American couple got in and said, "Hagia Sophia." He said merhaba and waited. They repeated Hagia Sophia louder. Hisaid mehabagan. The wife leaned forward and asked if he understood English. He nodded. She said, "So why aren't you driving?" He explained in English that in Turkey, you greet the driver first. The husband said they'd already told him where they wanted to go. My dad said greeting comes before request. They exchanged a look, and the wife said merhaba. He smiled, said merhaba, hoş geldiniz, and started driving. During the ride, the husband asked why Turkish drivers were so particular about greetings. My dad explained its basic respect. The husband said in New York, you get in and say your destination because time is money. My dad said in Istanbul, respect is money. They didn't respond. When they arrived, they paid exact change, no tip. He said gyul gyul anyway. They left a review saying Istanbul taxi drivers were difficult and insisted on formalities. My dad framed it. I work at an electronics store in Seoul. An American walked in, looked around for 10 seconds, then called out, "Do you have phone chargers?" I was helping an elderly Korean woman choose a tablet. He called again. "Excuse me, phone chargers?" The woman glanced at him and continued asking questions. I answered her questions, showed her 3 options, and waited while she compared them. The American walked over to us and said, "Sorry to interrupt, just need to know where phone chargers are." I held up one finger. He said, "It's a quick question." I finished with the woman, she bowed, I bowed, she left. I turned to him and bowed. He said, "Do you speak English?" I said yes. He asked about chargers. I showed him. He said Korean customer service was weird because staff wouldn't multitask. I explained that in Korea, giving each customer your complete attention is considered respectful. He said in America, addressing quick questions makes everyone's experience faster. I suggested he visit a more Western-style store if that's what he preferred. He bought his charger and left without bowing. My manager, who'd watched the whole thing, said, "That's the 3rd one this week. I'm a bus driver on the Amalfi Coast." An American family boarded and the father asked, "Does this go to Positano?" before paying or greeting. I nodded toward the fare box. He said, "Just confirming, does this go to Positano?" I said buongiorno. He sighed, said buongiorno, "Does this go to Positano?" I confirmed and pointed at the fare box again. He paid, moved to the back, and told his family that Italian bus drivers won't answer simple questions. His wife said maybe they should have rented a car. He said Italian roads were death trap. Their teenage daughter asked why everyone was staring at them. He said Europeans were nosy. I announced stops in Italian and English the entire route. When they got off at Positano, none of them said thank you or goodbye. 2 elderly Italian passengers who'd watched them said to me, "Americani," and shook their heads. I shrugged. The father later reviewed the bus service online saying drivers were unhelpful and wouldn't confirm route. Several Italians replied that he'd been rude and that's why he was ignored. He argued that asking a bus driver if it goes to your destination is normal customer service. They told him that greeting people is normal human service. I'm a tour guide in Prague. An American man approached me mid-tour with another group, waited approximately 5 seconds, then said, "Sorry to interrupt, where's the nearest ATM?" I held up one finger and continued explaining the astronomical clock to my group. He waited another 10 seconds and said louder, "I just need to know where an ATM is." My group went silent. A German woman in the group said to him, "He's working." The American said, "It's a 30-second question." The woman replied, "Then it can wait 30 seconds. He huffed and stepped back. When I finished that section, I excused myself from my group, approached him, and asked how I could help. He said, finally, and asked about the ATM. I gave him directions. He said Czech people were unfriendly. I said "Děkuji" and returned to my group. The German woman said, "Welcome to Europe, where we finish what we started." The group laughed. The American walked away muttering about how Americans were taught efficiency. My group, half of whom were American, looked uncomfortable. One American woman said quietly, "We're not all like that." I smiled and continued the tour. Here's what's happening. Americans are taught that directness equals respect for everyone's time. Much of the world is taught that greeting someone equals respect for their humanity. Americans aren't trying to be rude. They genuinely believe launching into requests is efficient. But efficiency without courtesy gets interpreted as entitlement. And entitlement gets ignored. It's not about language barriers. It's not about anti-American sentiment. It's about skipping the 30 seconds of acknowledgement that most cultures consider mandatory. Want help abroad? Start with hello in the local language. Wait your turn. Make eye contact. Smile. Those 5 seconds will get you better service than 10 minutes of demanding efficiency ever will.